In 2007, a rumor ignited Hollywood like a spark in dry brush. A small but notorious publication, Hollywood Truth magazine, claimed it had uncovered something buried deep in the archives of old Hollywood. A secret notebook that once belonged to Burt Lancaster. Not a diary. Not a memoir. Not the kind of gentle reflection a star writes in his final years. No, this notebook was darker, sharper. Inside its worn leather cover, Lancaster had allegedly listed names. Not just any names, but the stars he described as the most malicious people Hollywood had ever produced. For decades, Lancaster had been seen as a man of principle, respected for his artistry, admired for his sense of integrity. So why would a figure like him, who had little taste for scandal, risk everything by leaving behind such explosive words? Was this really Lancaster's work, or a fabrication designed to sell magazines? That debate rages on. But one thing is certain, the stories inside it cut through Hollywood's golden glow and exposed something much darker beneath. What follows isn't just gossip. It's a map of shadows, a glimpse at the dual lives of stars who embodied beauty and power by day and cruelty, manipulation, or worse by night. And whether you believe Lancaster's notebook existed or not, the chilling portraits it paints are hard to ignore. 1. Elizabeth Taylor, The Hidden Storm. Elizabeth Taylor was Hollywood royalty. With violet eyes that seemed to shimmer like gemstones under the lights, she wasn't just an actress. She was a force of nature. She won Oscars, conquered tabloids, and became the standard of screen glamour. But according to Lancaster's alleged notes, Taylor's storm wasn't just on the screen. It was within her. On the sprawling set of Cleopatra in 1962, one of the most expensive productions ever attempted, Taylor famously shut herself inside her dressing room over a disagreement about the color of a costume. Hours turned into half a day. The crew waited, the cameras stayed still, and each passing minute drained tens of thousands of dollars. When the director finally dared to confront her, Taylor's response wasn't a compromise. It was a glass of wine hurled directly at his face. Lancaster allegedly wrote that these weren't random tantrums. They were tactics. Taylor, he claimed, knew her value better than anyone. She wielded it like a weapon. Her marriages, 8 in total, weren't simply romances. They were battlegrounds where power shifted, careers bent, and producers caved. With Richard Burton, her most famous partner, she allegedly absorbed control of his career. Together, they became a Hollywood empire unto themselves. To Lancaster, Taylor wasn't a tempestuous starlet. She was Hollywood's queen of manipulation, wrapped in velvet charm, but armed with iron will. And yet, Taylor wasn't the only legend whose public shine masked something harsher. Kirk Douglas, predator in human skin. If Elizabeth Taylor was the storm, Kirk Douglas was the warrior. He embodied strength, freedom, and rebellion, most famously in Spartacus, a film that remains one of the greatest epics of its time. But Lancaster's words cut through the armor. He described Douglas not as a hero, but as a predator in human skin. Behind the roles, Douglas allegedly exerted disturbing influence. He meddled in casting choices, leaned on producers, and punished anyone who dared say no. According to Lancaster, one chilling example came in 1959, when an actress suddenly vanished from a role after refusing Douglas's dinner invitation. The rumors went further. Douglas was said to have used substances, not just for personal indulgence, but as tools of control. He allegedly supplied, distributed, and manipulated, creating a circle of dependency around him. In public, he was charming. In private, Lancaster wrote, he ruled with fear. For audiences, Douglas symbolized defiance and strength. But in Lancaster's eyes, he was something else entirely, a man whose smile concealed sharp teeth, willing to crush anyone in his path. And yet, compared to what Lancaster suggested about Natalie Wood, Douglas's cruelty was only the beginning. Tears as a weapon. Few stars ever embodied fragility the way Natalie Wood did. From Rebel Without a Cause to West Side Story, she was delicate, vulnerable, almost untouchable. But Lancaster's notebook allegedly insisted that her fragility was less gift than strategy. According to him, Wood used her tears as tools. On one production, when a director refused her demands, she staged a fainting spell. Production froze for hours. By the end of the day, the producers had relented. Lancaster claimed she also leveraged influence to push out co-stars she disliked, quietly nudging them out of projects and leaving their careers in tatters. And then, of course, there is her death. Officially ruled an accident in 1981, her drowning remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Lancaster hinted at a darker truth, writing that the sea did not kill her, it only concealed what she left behind on the shore. Whether that was a cryptic metaphor or an accusation, no one can know. But what's certain is that Wood's legacy remains divided. To the public, she was a tragic beauty. To Lancaster, she was a calculated manipulator, weaving webs of tears and silence. And from Wood's tears, Lancaster's notebook turns to Mickey Rooney, an icon who made millions laugh but allegedly thrived on cruelty when the cameras stopped rolling. Mickey Rooney, cruel behind the smile. For decades, Mickey Rooney was the boy next door. Small in stature but immense in talent, he charmed audiences in musicals, comedies, and dramas alike. To millions, he was the face of joy. But Lancaster's notes described something entirely different. Rooney, he wrote, was cruel behind the smile. On set, he allegedly mocked extras and humiliated supporting actors, turning their struggles into punchlines for his amusement. His personal life, Lancaster claimed, was darker still. Rooney's many marriages weren't filled with romance. They were, according to the notebook, cages. In one alleged incident in 1967, Rooney reportedly slapped his wife on set for arriving late, silencing the crew in shock. For audiences, Rooney was comedy incarnate. But for those close to him, Lancaster suggested he was a tormentor hiding in plain sight. And if Rooney's cruelty was hidden behind laughter, Marilyn Monroe's destruction, Lancaster argued, was wrapped in fragility itself. Marilyn Monroe, black hole of Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a star. She was a phenomenon. She glowed on screen, breathed glamour into every photograph, and became the most enduring icon of beauty in the 20th century. But Lancaster's description was brutal. Monroe, he wrote, was a black hole at the center of Hollywood. On the set of Some Like It Hot, she would vanish without warning, leaving cast and crew stranded for hours. Her absence wasn't just negligence, it was power. Lancaster claimed she weaponized her fragility. She didn't just look broken. She turned that very image into a tool. Beyond the set, her influence allegedly stretched to the highest levels of Hollywood. Through carefully chosen relationships with studio heads and producers, she manipulated projects, shifted casting, and bent decisions in her favor. One alleged example. When Jack Warner suggested pairing her with a different leading man, Monroe staged an emotional crisis until the entire project was restructured to her terms. To the public, Monroe was a tragic victim undone by fame. But to Lancaster, she was something else, a gravitational force pulling everyone around her into chaos, destroying careers and projects in her orbit. And if Monroe was chaos incarnate, Errol Flynn, Lancaster wrote, was something darker still. The devil in a gentleman's suit. Errol Flynn, devil in a gentleman's suit. Few actors embodied swashbuckling charm the way Errol Flynn did. As Robin Hood, Captain Blood, and countless adventurers, he was gallantry personified. But according to Lancaster's alleged writings, the truth was far from gallant. Flynn, he claimed, was a devil in disguise. Behind the smile and the sword fights was a man consumed by excess. His legendary parties weren't glamorous soirees. They were, Lancaster alleged, dens of drugs, intimidation, and predation. Rumors of trafficking, abuse, and violence clung to Flynn for years. Yet he walked free time and again, protected by wealth, connections, and the unspoken rule that stars were untouchable. Victims stayed silent, too afraid to challenge the image of Hollywood's favorite adventurer. To his fans, Flynn was gallantry. But to Lancaster, he was a monster in a mask, a gentleman's suit draped over something far more sinister. And just when the notebook seems like it cannot get darker, it turns to names no one expected, legends whose laughter and elegance hid something far colder. Lucille Ball. Laughter with a razor's edge. Lucille Ball was America's comedy queen. Her laugh carried across living rooms, her charm saved CBS from collapse, and her show I Love Lucy remains one of the most beloved of all time. But Lancaster's notebook painted her in shocking contrast. Behind the laughter, he claimed, was ruthlessness. At Desilu Studios, she allegedly kept meticulous records of her employees' mistakes. Slip 3 times and you were gone. Writers were mocked and belittled in meetings, humiliated for the smallest errors. Lancaster even alleged she installed hidden microphones to spy on staff conversations. One particularly chilling anecdote claimed she once threw a script back at its writer, laughing loudly as the room fell silent. Her laugh, Lancaster wrote, once saved CBS, but it also crushed the spirits of dozens who worked beneath her. If Ball's power was wielded with laughter, Joan Crawford's power, according to the notebook, was enforced with fear. Joan Crawford, violence at home. On screen, Joan Crawford was the image of poise and elegance. Statuesque, commanding, unforgettable. She could elevate even the weakest script with sheer force of presence. But Lancaster described a different woman entirely. At home, he wrote, Crawford spread fear. Her daughter Christina later confirmed similar claims in her memoir, Mommy Dearest. Stories of coat-hanger beatings, cruel punishments, and constant humiliation painted Crawford as a tyrant within her own family. To Lancaster, Crawford wasn't simply a perfectionist. She was a ruler who demanded obedience, not just from directors and producers, but from her children. And when perfection wasn't met, punishment followed. To her fans, she was a Hollywood queen. To those who lived with her, Lancaster suggested she was something closer to a tyrant. What the notebook really means. So what do we make of Burt Lancaster's alleged notebook? Was it real, a secret document left by one of Hollywood's most principled stars, or was it a fabrication designed to shock and sell magazines? The answer may not matter as much as the stories themselves. True or exaggerated, they reveal something undeniable. Behind the golden glow of old Hollywood were storms, predators, manipulators, and tyrants. These stars built empires on talent, beauty, and charisma. But according to Lancaster's supposed words, they also left behind wreckage, broken careers, shattered lives, and rumors that still echo decades later. Maybe the real story isn't who was cruelest, but why Hollywood allowed cruelty to thrive. Why did an industry built on dreams so often reward those who ruled by fear? So I'll leave you with this. Which of these revelations shocked you the most? Was it the charming heroes turned predators, the beloved icons with iron fists, or the fragile beauties who weaponized their pain? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because what you've heard tonight might be disturbing, but it's only a fragment of the shadows lurking in Hollywood's golden age.